A mystery ship arrives in Canada.
Once the RCMP and the captain of the frigate talked to the vessel, they were able to understand our orders and were compliant.
And triggers a debate about its human cargo.
Any individuals who endanger national security or who have engaged in the criminal enterprise of human smuggling will be prosecuted to the full extent of the law.
On News in Review today, the Tamil boat people controversy. Hello, I'm Michael Serapio. For most of the last 30 years, the nation of Sri Lanka has been at war with itself. The country, located off the southwest tip of India, is made up of two main ethnic groups, a Sinhalese majority who are Buddhists and a Tamil minority who are Hindus. The Tamils have long complained about being discriminated against by the Sinhalese. And in 1983, when they began a campaign to create a separate Tamil state in the northern part of the island, a brutal civil war began. Tamil Tiger guerrillas fought the Sri Lankan army. Almost 100,000 people, many of them innocent civilians, were killed before the Sri Lankan military defeated the Tigers in May 2009. As the war raged, many Tamils sought shelter in other countries, including Canada, and some of them arrived by boat. In October of 2009, a ship with 76 Tamils on board docked in Victoria, British Columbia. They were detained while their applications for refugee status were processed. Then in August of this year came word that another ship with many more Tamils on board was approaching the coast of British Columbia. The government said the ship was called the MV Sunsea and that human smugglers and terrorists might be on board, so the Canadian Navy and the RCMP set out to meet it. The CBC's Chris Brown picks up the story.
A flotilla of RCMP vessels headed out from Victoria at first light to join the high seas rendezvous with the MV Sunsea. Offshore, thick fog made it impossible for observers to see much. But marine tracking websites showed the cargo ship moving slowly along the west coast of Vancouver Island at 15 kilometers an hour. It was closely shadowed by the frigate HMCS Winnipeg and the coastal defense vessel HMCS Whitehorse. Around midday, the Sunsea made a sharp turn east, heading closer to land, and the public safety minister emerged with this statement.
This afternoon, a vessel carrying 490 individuals claiming refugee status, including suspected human smugglers and terrorists, has entered our water, and the Canadian government is taking action.
But what action exactly? In a press release, the minister indicated the ship was actually boarded. Later, the military said that was not the case. So what happened and who is in control of the Sunsea now is not clear. But in Victoria, a massive federal response awaits. At the jetty where the ship will dock, the military didn't want our cameras poking around.
Can we get you guys to move back 200 meters, please?
Arriving on the ferry from Vancouver, what seemed like an army of customs and border officers, along with their vehicles and paddy wagons. Also making the trip, a lawyer for the Canadian Tamil Congress.
It's incumbent upon us to help make sure that we treat them fairly, we give them due process, we give them the right type of care for those who may be ill on the ship.
Local hospitals are prepared to handle dozens of sick or malnourished passengers. In October, when the last ship carrying Tamils arrived here, all on board were men in good health. But after 90 days at sea, this trip was twice as long. This passenger from the first boat says everyone on board will be desperate.
We all felt that we won't be alive in the future. We can't even sleep in the boat, we can't cook food, we can't eat because of the heavy wave. And the boat won't stable, it's move here and there. We can't go to washroom, we can't do anything.
Because Canada considers the Tamil Tigers to be a terrorist group, the government insisted the ship could be a threat.
As I've indicated, there are suspected terrorists and human smugglers on this boat.
But critics pointed out the government had made the same claims about those on board the Ocean Lady, and that turned out not to be true. Others said the Tamil refugees were probably just desperate.
The people who are risking their lives to take this huge journey across the ocean are doing so because there are very serious human rights violations in Sri Lanka.
The opposition said the government should give each refugee a fair hearing.
If we find that there are security risks, then they have to be sent home. But in Canada, we do it one by one. That's the way we ought to do it on this boat.
The suspense finally lifted when the mystery ship docked in British Columbia and Canadians got a glimpse of its human cargo. Here again is the CBC's Chris Brown.
The Sun Sea's long trip across the Pacific ended just before dawn in the calm waters off Victoria, with Canadian police and sailors on deck and a large naval escort alongside. Tugboats eased the freighter into port. The first striking observation from those watching, that it's an incredibly small ship to carry so many people.
Oh my God.
Very, very small. Hard to imagine, 400 people are in the small boat.
These family doctors from the Toronto area flew in overnight, hoping to help. A CBC crew on the water took these first pictures of those on board, a family of 5 peering over the side. But it was mostly heavily armed police and border agents in view. Wearing masks, they appeared to be searching the ship. It was only 4 hours later that the first passengers were delicately led across the gangplank. Then others followed, a few at a time. A family with several young children appeared to have their belongings in plastic bags. It was a slow exit from the Sun Sea, and one the government is still very reluctant to provide much detail about.
It will take considerable time to do this investigation, but we are sure that we will be doing security checks and criminal record checks as part of our follow-up.
When asked about the presumably horrible conditions on board or how passengers reacted to seeing Canadians, this was all a Navy captain would say.
Once the RCMP and the captain of the frigate talked to the vessel, they were able to understand our orders and were compliant.
Officials also divulged very little about the Tamil's health. We counted a dozen or so people from the ship arriving at a Victoria hospital. Their next stop is likely a jail and then detention reviews. Authorities refuse to say whether the children would be separated from their families.
Everything is done on a case-by-case basis and the circumstances and information we have at the time.
Before this trip, experts familiar with the Tamil Tigers said the Sun Sea is a Tiger vessel. The public safety minister says the priority is figuring out who on board is a security threat.
Any individuals who endanger national security or who have engaged in the criminal enterprise of human smuggling will be prosecuted to the full extent of the law.
All of the government officials who spoke today stressed the criminality of the ship's arrival, but those on board likely know that they have an excellent chance of getting to stay here. For Sri Lankan refugee claimants, the acceptance rate is 85%.
While the Tamils were taken to detention centers and, in some cases, hospitals, police went over the ship trying to determine who had organized the trip. They also reported that one man had died during the long voyage and had been buried at sea. Others described the conditions on board.
They had only one toilet for 300 or 400 odd people. They had soup twice a day on various occasions. Sometimes they had only one meal a day, sort of, and they had only 1 liter of water for a week.
But despite that, not all Canadians welcomed the new arrivals. Many accused them of being queue jumpers. There were calls to send them back. And the government continued to stress the illegality of the ship's arrival, with the Prime Minister suggesting it might be time to toughen Canada's refugee laws.
We will not hesitate to strengthen the laws if we have to, because ultimately, as a government, we're responsible. It's a fundamental exercise of sovereignty. We are responsible for the security of our borders.
To try to counter that sentiment, the Canadian Tamil Congress released a letter from some of the migrants. "We are not terrorists," it said. "We are innocent civilians who have been affected by the conflict. We express our gratitude to the Canadian government." While the 492 Tamils from the Sun Sea waited to hear whether they would be held or released and how long it would take to know whether they would be granted asylum in Canada, the CBC's Nala Ayed tracked down some Tamils from a previous refugee boat and found them still waiting.
For many a newcomer, living in a neighborhood like this is only the stuff of dreams. Ravi is living that dream for now. Thanks to a host family, this is his first home in Canada. But if he's not granted the permanent asylum he's seeking, it will be his last.
All I know is that I'm very, very scared to go back home because of my past experiences in Sri Lanka. They know that we had fled the country. So if we were to ever, if our case does not go well, if we were to ever go back home, I know one thing for sure is that I will not be alive.
Hard to believe he's alive even now. Last year, Ravi came from Sri Lanka via Malaysia, Thailand, and a vast ocean. We've hidden his identity to protect his family back home.
If we were able to stay back home, we would be more than willing to, because the situation was very extreme there. We had to take extreme measures.
By any measure, nearly 30 years of civil war is extreme, and ethnic Tamils say as a minority they've borne the brunt of it. The fight between the separatist Liberation Tigers of Tamil Eelam and the Sinhalese government of Sri Lanka cost nearly 100,000 lives, countless others displaced. Ravi was among them, saying he was forced with his family into a camp, and among many others subject to disappearances, harassment, even killings. The government denies most of it. Ravi paid his way out. Within a few weeks, he was on a boat from Thailand, making for open waters. Organizers charged $50,000 a head, $5,000 to be paid up front. The rest was due upon arrival. Migrants would have to borrow, and their families would sell everything to pay up. It would be 10 days, he says, before Ravi knew he was en route to Canada. Ravi was one of 76 on board the Ocean Lady.
We had very hard time, sleeping. The main problem was food. Because of the rocking of the boat, we were always constantly vomiting.
Finally, on Canadian soil, even up to 5 months detention was preferable to the conditions back home. Most then left for Toronto, home to the largest Tamil community outside Sri Lanka, some of them relatives awaiting their arrival. One of them is Kumar, who hasn't seen his family in more than a year. In 2001, he was arrested in Sri Lanka on suspicion of being a Tamil tiger. He's adamant he's not.
Because I told them this, I was innocent. They actually beat me up from my back and I lost my teeth. I actually left. I didn't care whether it's ship, plane, or even by walk. I wanted to go to a safe country, the country which can take me as a refugee.
Here he lives with a curfew and no work permit. Like Ravi, he takes English lessons and reports to authorities each week. He also receives social assistance. But none of the 76 cases have yet been heard. Changes in immigration laws meant to speed up hearings are still being implemented. Lawyers still caution against calling the migrants queue jumpers.
A refugee fleeing persecution cannot go to an embassy and stand in line and ask for a visa. They have no choice but to get out of the country. People who flee persecution and come to Canada and seek asylum are not queue jumpers. There are no queues for them.
Nearly a year on, Ravi's own limbo continues. As he waits, he helps with household chores to repay his host's generosity. He's upset at the cool reception the new arrivals have received. He's convinced they're just refugees desperately seeking safety like him.
I don't want to be assisted by the government. I want to be able to stand on my own 2 feet, be able to work, be able to go to school, and contribute back to the society here. I would love to be a Canadian.
Most of all, Ravi wants to stop dreaming and start living. Nala Ayed, CBC News, Toronto.
More than a month after they arrived, most of the Tamil migrants were still being held in detention centres. The government was still vowing to crack down on human smuggling, and in a Vancouver hospital, one of the migrants gave birth to a baby girl. In Canada, a land of immigrants, the immigrant story continues. And that is News in Review. Now, don't forget to check out our website at newsinreview.cbclearning.ca. CBC.ca. I'm Michael Serapio. Thanks for watching. It rushed across the country like an unstoppable tide, bringing misery and despair to millions.
I have had the chance to see the tremendous destruction and profound suffering with my own eyes. It is heart-wrenching. The scale and magnitude is difficult to comprehend, beyond imagination.
On News in Review today, Pakistan's catastrophic floods. Hello, I'm Michael Serapio. Every year, the monsoon rains arrive in Pakistan, but this year, the rainfall was so heavy it triggered one of the biggest natural catastrophes in living memory. Sweeping in from the Arabian Sea and the Bay of Bengal, the rains mixed with melting snow in the northern mountains to cause massive flooding. By early August, dozens of roads, bridges, and entire villages had been swept away. More than 1,000 people were dead. 2 million people were homeless. It rained for 3 days, he says. Water kept rising. Many people drowned. And right from the start, relief organizations knew that getting help to the needy wouldn't be easy.
The terrain, mountainous, hot, remote, difficult access, political instability, all of those make a dangerous potion.
But as the rains kept falling, nobody could have predicted the scale of the disaster. The Pakistani army was quickly overwhelmed. Many areas received no aid, and despair turned to anger. The rations come, the village elders give it to their own people, and the poor get nothing, this man said.
Yahya Shah, how are you?
Meanwhile, in Canada, Pakistani Canadians were desperate for news about their relatives.
I feel bad, and again, I would